Hello, I'm Karma Kraus, and welcome to our second edition of Building for Success, Salem-Keizer's monthly video update on the 2018 Construction Bond Program. Today, we are going to talk with Joel Smallwood, Manager of Maintenance and Construction Services. Joel will tell us about some of the key safety, security, and seismic improvements that are being added to our schools in the 2018 bond program. But first, we're going to start with some information about the boundary adjustment process. As you might remember from last month's issue of Building for Success, we talked about how the bond will fund additional space in 29 of our schools, resulting in additional enrollment capacity across the district, and that a boundary adjustment process would be starting. To briefly recap, over 204,000 square feet of general classroom space alone is being added to our schools in the 2018 bond program. There's also more than 75,000 square feet in new or repurposed science labs being constructed, 83,000 square feet of cafeteria space, and thousands more feet of space added for gyms, multi-purpose fitness spaces, and career and technical education spaces. The capacity of most of our high schools will be boosted from about 1,700 students up to 2,200 students. With all this new space being added to schools over the next 5 years, a big question is, how can the district ensure it is put to use and is serving students? This is where boundary adjustments come in. Adjusting school boundaries will shift students away from crowded conditions and into adequate spaces being constructed all across the district and will balance out enrollments. The first thing to say about boundary adjustments is that they are not easy. Boundary changes are not fun for our community, but they are, unfortunately, necessary to improving our students' educational experience. By shifting boundaries and balancing enrollments, we can help make sure that our students have learning environments that are comfortable, healthy, and productive. During the boundary adjustment process, every school boundary in Salem-Keizer will be reviewed. However, not all boundaries will need to be adjusted. The feeder systems experiencing the most crowding, such as the McKay feeder system, are expected to see the most boundary adjustments. A boundary review task force has been formed to tackle the work of adjusting school boundaries. The task force is made up of 45 representatives from across Salem and Keizer who will meet approximately once each week until early December. The task force has started examining a draft adjustment scenario or springboard scenario prepared by district staff and Flow Analytics, a contractor with expertise in data analysis and in drawing school boundaries. The goal of the Boundary Review Task Force is to create a recommendation for boundary adjustments to be presented to the superintendent at the December 11th school board meeting. The board is expected to vote on proposed boundary adjustments at its February 2019 meeting, with new boundaries going into effect in fall of 2019. In order for the task force to come to consensus on a boundary adjustment proposal, they will review the springboard scenario with the school board's guiding principles in mind. In short, the guiding principles ask that boundary changes allow adequate room for required programs and enrollment growth, ensure access to equitable educational opportunities, ensure safety to and from school, provide continuity in school assignments for families, ensure affected community members are involved in the process and represent ethnic and socioeconomic diversity, and consider the impact to established neighborhoods. The guiding principles reflect the district's focus on equity, which requires the task force to consider the implications of proposed changes on underserved, diverse, and marginalized individuals and groups. Over the course of the next several meetings, the task force will recommend changes to the springboard and create a final boundary adjustment scenario. The public will have the opportunity to view and give feedback on boundary adjustments at 2 upcoming boundary open house events. One thing to keep in mind is that once final, boundary adjustments take from 3 to 5 years to fully implement. Students that have completed half of their education at one level of school and who would be assigned to a new school because of a boundary change can apply for a continuity exemption. In most cases, students in good standing who qualify for and apply for the continuity exemption are automatically approved. The exemption would allow the student to stay at their current school. The boundary adjustment process is complex, and the district is grateful to the members of the Boundary Review Task who are volunteering their time to help get the adjustments right. You can follow the work of the Boundary Review Task Force on the Boundary Adjustments page of the district website. Now let's shift gears from school boundaries and head over to the Facility Services Department to talk with Joel Smallwood about safety, security, and seismic improvements in the bond. Thanks for being on our Building for Success edition for October 2018. Today we're talking about safety and security improvements that are included in the bond package. We've got $21.1 million dedicated in the bond for improving safety and security. Can you tell me a little bit about what is included in that $21.1 million?
Yeah, absolutely. That money will go towards several different things throughout the district. One of them will be to replace our existing badge reader system at locations that don't have the new system. The one that's in place in many buildings is outdated. We'll be replacing that, which will provide some security there. Additionally, we'll be replacing intercom systems at many of our schools so that they all have an updated, current, modern system in them. Additionally, there will be some work around security cameras and things like that as well to improve the security of the building.
Okay, fantastic. How many schools are going to have some type of security improvement in the bond?
All schools will see something. Some of our newer schools won't see a whole lot, mostly the badge reader access at those buildings, at our newer buildings, but many will see other items. We have 34 that'll see major improvements in their office areas. We have multiple that will have the new intercom as well.
Talk a little bit more about the intercoms, please. What's so special about the new intercom system?
The new intercom system, of course, does that great communication between the office and the classroom. Like our current intercom systems, it's just more modern and better sound quality, better volume, things like that. Is a piece of it, just the beginning of the new intercom systems. Secondly, we'll be able to expand into areas that previously we didn't cover with intercoms. In today's world, we're covering more areas, gymnasiums, cafeterias. Some of them are covered with the old systems, but you can't really hear it when there's 60 kids in there or more during lunch, something like that. So we'll improve the sound quality in there where people can hear the intercoms. Additionally, the intercom system we're using now is integrated with our clock system. So there's a small digital clock attached to this in each classroom. And that digital clock can also be used as a scrolling reader board. It's quite small, so you do have to watch it, but it can scroll a message. So that would allow either our office or our emergency operations center, if they needed to scroll a message into that classroom or gymnasium, into that building, for the occupants to read without it making a lot of noise. It could just be a message on a reader board so they can get some information to them.
Great. Sounds like it's really going to improve the ability of the office to get in touch with classrooms and different spaces when they need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're also talking about renovating and relocating some office spaces as security improvements under the bond. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we have several buildings in our district that the office is not really that close to the front entrance. So we're buzzing people in and they walk for quite a while before they get to the office. In those cases, we're going to completely move the office. We'll take over a new area, completely relocate the office operation to the front of the building. We have others where the office is close to the front, and that's where the renovations will come in. The office may be close to the front door, but they can't necessarily see the front door. They can't see people approaching the building coming to it. So they're very limited on their visibility of that front entrance. In those cases, we'll open those up. A lot of different options there. It's a custom fit for each building, depends on what each building has there. But could be some additional windows, could be a secured vestibule, could be turning the way the office lays out, so they're facing the front versus facing another direction.
Gotcha. So you mentioned cameras at the entrance. Who can see footage of those security cameras?
The cameras that are at our front entrance for our badge reader system can only be seen there in the school on their system inside the office, so they know who they're letting in. As far as recorded video, that's a very select group that can use it. Our security team, of course, in the buildings can get a hold of that. I don't have access to that kind of footage, so it's a very small group.
So it sounds like only certain select district staff have access to that footage.
Absolutely.
So we've also got seismic improvements included in this bond. About $67 million is included in the package. Can you tell us what those improvements look like?
Yeah, there's $57 million of that money will go towards buildings that have been deemed as a very high risk of collapse during a Cascadia event. We've done several different assessments of the buildings over the years and narrowed that down to some pretty focused work. You might look at a high school campus and see it as one big building, but Structurally, it's several buildings, several different areas of a building put together. So we've taken it and broken it down that way and identified those areas that are highest risk, the very high risk of collapse. And we'll go in and we'll strengthen those areas in order to provide for exiting and safe egress out of those areas so people can get out of that building during and after that Cascadia event. That building may not be reusable after that event, but the idea is to get people out of that building. So we're going to focus on those very high risk areas with $57 million. The other $10 million of that money is going towards all of our additions. So everywhere that we're adding square footage, we are going to build that area to a seismic code that's slightly higher than what we'd be required to build it to. We're going to build it to what's called immediate reoccupancy. And what that means is that building will stand and stay together for people to get out during the event, but also be able to be occupied fairly shortly after the event, after an inspection and some things like that, to be reoccupied. It's not a shelter. We're not building to full shelter status, but it is a building that would be available for those groups in our community that provide those kinds of services. So the Red Cross or other groups that may want to come in and set up a shelter, we'll have those spaces scattered throughout our community. So everywhere that we do new square footage, which is pretty well scattered throughout the entire community, we'll have some space that meets that immediate reoccupancy standard from a structural standpoint.
That's awesome. What a great benefit for not just our schools, but for our whole community. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah. Well, thanks, Joel. That's all the questions we have for you today. We hope you'll join us next month on Building for Success when we talk about the technology improvements included in the bond package, as well as how we plan for future maintenance to preserve our community's investment in schools and district facilities.